Today we're going to work on a Zuppa Toscana, which really just translates to Tuscan soup. We're going to work through some of our mise en place, building some flavor with some fond and deglazing that, and just getting everything put together in a nice way. So let's get started. As we look through our recipe, we want to make sure we get all the things out we need in advance. We have 1 pound of spicy Italian sausage ready. If you want to use something like a spicy Italian turkey or even mild sausage or a mild spicy turkey ground, that is absolutely something you can do. We're going to need, in the recipe here, it quotes for 4 tablespoons of butter. I'm going to go for 2 at the moment. We're going to need half of a yellow onion in a small dice, meaning very 1/4 inch squares. We're going to need a tablespoon of minced garlic. So I have my minced garlic out, I have my onion out and ready. I've prepared my 6 cups of chicken broth. That's ready for me. And then I got my 2 cups of additional water called for. My 4 potatoes are out and washed. I still have to peel and dice them for demonstration. I have salt ready and my measuring utensil ready. Heavy cream, I have a pint out. This recipe calls for 2 cups. 2 cups is a pint. And then we have our kale washed and ready, but I'm going to wait to cut it until our potatoes are cooking. So in a large pot, it has us, or gives us permission to saute our sausage for about 5 minutes until it's browned. Then add my onions and garlic, and then deglaze my pan with chicken broth and add my potatoes, salt, and pepper. So there, I'm going to want my potatoes ready before I start sauteing, I think. That way I am not waiting. Okay, so I think I'm going to get that ready. Then it lets me stir in my kale, heavy cream, and sausage, which will all be ready in those previous steps. So let's get going and get started on that important step of just peeling and dicing our potatoes. So we're just going to get our standard equipment out, a peeler. This one this part here is for picking out any of those heads that you can't get to. I like to work over a bowl, a sink, or a garbage, and then return all of that to a trash, not down the sink or down the garbage disposal. It can cause plugs. Also, your local municipality is just going to have to clean those potatoes out of the water in order to feed you that same water back to you. So there's a little conservator message. So we just are going to work through peeling all 4 of these potatoes. After we peel all of these, I like to just head off to the sink and give them a little rinse. So I'll be right back. We have nice peeled potatoes, give them a little rinse, and now we just need to put them into dice, right? So we just need a 1-inch cube or 1-inch dice. Whenever stepping up to a cutting board, if a recipe doesn't give you a size, just try to think of your end plate, right? So if you want a little bit of everything in your spoon, then cut accordingly, okay? So I'm going to make sure that these are all a similar cube size. I'm not going to stack too many up at a time for my own safety so that if things shift, I'm okay. But I'm still working efficiently and just moving along, right? Keeping my cutting board clear. I have my bowl already ready, right? So we're just going to go ahead and dice all of our potatoes so they're ready before I begin browning my sausage. Because when I brown my sausage, I'm going to play a little bit of multitask. I'm going to dice half my onion. A little suction on that potato. That's a big one. There we go. Stack them up. Give them a cut. So don't waste time cutting one row at a time or one rectangle baton at a time. I go ahead and I cut them all. try to keep moving. That's a little bit weird, so I don't want it to shift on me and accidentally cut myself. So maybe I'll cut that in half and then let that join the party when I do this part. Right? So we have our little cubes. They're all going to fit on our spoon with some other things really nice. And we just keep moving along because we don't want this to be a forever process, right? So we'll keep these two stacked up. But there was some drama here. We don't want that. We have pride and plate. So we're going to just take a little action and cut that out. Same over here. We won't add that to our dish. All right, now we continue. All right. A little too wide, isn't it? There. So I chose to just grab 4 potatoes because I had some pretty big ones in my box from my pantry. Ooh, look at that big old pile of potatoes. Let's get things done, isn't it, team? Last one. We're already through it. We'll begin browning our sausage next. And get that all cooked up and browned. And we see in our instructions that it tells us to prepare like a plate with a paper towel. An option, if you have a colander with small holes, you can set that up and just set it on top of a bowl in order to do its draining. So we're going to head over and we're going to get our pan ready. So in a pan like this is a non-stick aluminum pan. If you have a stainless steel pot or a aluminum pot like this one, you're going to want to practice the standard of non-sticking this pan. So first of all, this is sitting on a warm burner already. So this burner is already warm, and we now, because it's warm, too hot to the touch, I'm not even going to touch it, I'm going to add just a little bit of oil. See how little? Just that much. Because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to spread that oil out over this metal surface of this particular pot. Happens to be aluminum, but it could be stainless steel. And now that I've done that, I've basically coated all those open pores of the metal with this oil and de-sticked it. So now I've heated the pan, added a fat, heated that fat, and this is now a non-stick pan for us to continue forward on. Does that mean nothing ever will stick to the bottom of this pan? No, that is not what it means, because we still want to develop that fond on the bottom of the pan, right? Because we still have our deglazing step in step 3. So just remember, the point is that we don't put a pot on the stove cold, turn the flame on, and then chuck cold meat in our pan. That is a no, because then things will stick. So we're going to add our pound of spicy Italian sausage. That's what I'm using. You could use a spicy Italian turkey or even mild if you want. All right, so we have our nice hot pan. I've done my nonstick process. And then now we just begin browning our hamburger, okay? I've turned my heat up now so that I can start achieving browning. But notice how everything slides around real nice on this pan. right now, that's because I did that non-stick process. All right. So we're just going to go ahead, get this all browned up. Make sure your pan is prepared to put your sausage in. And then while this is happening, why not multitask, right? So I did not prepare my half of an onion yet, did I? No, I did that on purpose so that I had something to do. All right, so I have this as raw. I'm going to keep that away from my other stuff, but that's okay. Everything else is getting preparation. So I got my cutting board, and we remember how to properly dice an onion. We only need half. So yay. But we still step up and approach this onion in the same way, okay? We take our clean chef knife, and the first step is to remove the flower and the root, right? So we remove the flower and the root real carefully. A nice good cut at the flower, right? Keep your garbage close by. A nice good cut at the flower. And then just a little shave at the root to get rid of those little fuzzy guys. All right. Now we lay it down and we cut it in half. Okay, you can set that other half aside for use later. Now you just peel the skin off the outside, right? That part that isn't going to cook down soft. And now you have this prepared. Well, that's ready. I'm going to go ahead and give our sausage a stir. Sizzling is happening. All right, so I'm okay with that. I'm happy with my temperature. I see things aren't browning too fast. Set that aside, move back to our cutting board. We're at radius cut. So we go ahead and we cut towards the center, controlling the size of our dice by controlling how far apart our onion slices are. So if we're going for a 1/4 inch dice, then from here to here should only be a 1/4 inch. If you think of a piece of grid paper, it's that square in the grid paper. That's a 1/4 inch square. That's what you're going for. So now I've cut it towards the center, right? And now we make our dice. We control our size in our radius cut and when we turn and cut across the spine. Once we get too close, we again finish up with step 6, reduce the waste. All right, so I've got my onion prepped out and ready for when my sausage is done browning, and I kind of multitask. So I wanted you to see how fun that is. My sausage is coming along very nice, super happy with that. We'll give that a little stir. And then we see, like on the bottom of the pan, maybe fond will start to develop. Not yet, though. Get that all done. After this step, make sure you wash your cutting board and your knife before you continue on using this same cutting board for your kale in a few minutes. So we're going to just, while that browns, we're going to make sure we wash our cutting board and our chef knife so that everything is clean. All those onion juices and potato juices are gone. Okay. I'm going to clean my chef knife and put it away because I don't need this knife anymore. I'm going to move on to a serrated slicer next. All right. Notice I can just let it brown for a little bit before moving it around. I don't constantly have to tend it. Allowing the heat to do its job, allowing the heat to transfer from the element through the pan to our product. We've added no liquid to this yet, but this time this is a dry heat cooking method of browning this sausage. I almost said hamburger. If you wanted to try this with burger, you probably could. I would probably just look up common spices in sausage and add those. Things like fennel and anise. Maybe crushed red pepper, those kind of spices that are found. So this is getting close to brown. And we're going to move on to our next step of sauteing that onion. Get this completely browned up, allow it to develop a little fond and flavor. So we do want to cook this until it's a little browned. Notice the direction said browned. It didn't say cook it till gray. It says cook it until brown. Okay? And why is because you're developing flavor. Okay? You're developing different flavors in this dish. When we brown it, it allows for caramelization. Sugars and the proteins, they let out and they brown. That's caramelization. Moving past those gray colors to the more browns. Breaking up any lumps so that I can see if anything's raw inside. Beautiful. We can pull this off now and put it on to drain. We don't want any of those fats in our soup. It would be unappealing to our mouth. That feeling in our mouth, that fatty feeling is not a good feeling. All right, return that pan to the heat. Get that in a way that it can drain off. So we can go ahead and drive ahead. With the next step, it says we're going to cook up and saute up those onions. Add that butter, get it melting down. All right, cook's tip. I'm going to use, with sauteing onions and mushrooms, produce basically, if you add a little salt in this butter sauteing process here, it kind of like, think about if you ever put like a salty finger on a wound, how it burns. So when you put salt on these produces, when you're cooking them, it basically makes the cells weep their liquids, and thus those liquids giving more of a bath in this pan and cooking it nicer, faster, better caramelization. So I'm going to take half of my salt measurement. I need 2 teaspoons of salt in this recipe, so I'm going to take 1 of my teaspoons. I'm actually going to add it right now in this stage in order to advance my cooking of my onions to a better culinary place based on experience, right? That's why you're here with me. So we're going to go ahead and let these cook down until they're kind of translucent. Then we're going to add our tablespoon of garlic. I have a tub of pre-minced garlic. So in this space right now, if you're going to mince your garlic by hand, go ahead and mince that right now. That's what you should be multitasking on right now, getting a whole tablespoon of minced garlic. If you're pulling it out of the jar, get that measured. A whole tablespoon of minced garlic. How nice is it that it's an actual measurement on this recipe? Because our garlic cloves are different, aren't they? Our garlic cloves are different sizes. They come from nature. So in recipes, whenever they can give us a measurement of something like a garlic clove, I always appreciate it. Even this recipe calls for half of an onion. Like, everybody's onion's a different size, right? I'm wiping down my countertop, and where any of that raw sausage might have been, where I set that spatula, we'll reset clean there. We'll allow our onions to continue to work. All right, we got fond building. We don't want to turn the temperature up to accelerate this process. It does not work like that. Time is what you need to cook these onions down. If you turn the heat up to accelerate this process, all that's going to happen is this fond down here is going to turn into carbon, and you're just going to burn the bottom half of the onion and not really cook it. So don't push it, all right? You let this cook down for those minutes that they need to cook. We're at about 4 minutes of cooking these onions. And now this is a good spot to add our garlic. Why didn't we put this garlic in right away? Because garlic cooks faster than onions. The cell structure is a lot more open, and you can burn garlic. If you start just cooking garlic right away in a recipe, you can even reduce its awesome garlicky flavor. So that's why we're going to cook these down first and then add our garlic. So these are at a good place for us to go ahead and add our garlic. And now notice this color of this garlic is going to just make a little bit of a transition here in this pot. So right now, I got a nice tan color. And it'll just start to match all of our onions and look really great really soon. We just want to cook this down. We want to get any raw garlic flavor out of it before we continue forward at all. And having those potatoes ready before we even started this was a good idea. I can tell now because we're about to deglaze. We're about to get started on that deglazing process, where we get the fond off the bottom of the pan. Right, so this is deglazing. Good cooks don't scrub pots. We take this brown fond, which is caramelization and flavor, and we return it to our dish. We just add a little bit of our liquid, our flavorful liquid. We use our wooden spoon or our scraper spatula, and we get all that up off the bottom of the pan and return all that awesomeness to our dish. So we've gotten deglazed our pan nice. We got all the stuff off the bottom. And now it tells us we are allowed to add the rest of our chicken stock. The water that we got ready. Our potatoes. We used half the salt when we made our onions, so let's put the other half of the salt in. And Zuppa Toscana, Tuscan soup, it does have a peppery profile. So that whole teaspoon of pepper is part of its flavor profile. But if you're, kind of trepidatious about pepper, maybe just put half in. Maybe just put a quarter in, all right? I'm a little nervous about that whole teaspoon. I'm going half, because I can. I'm the chef. All right, so I've added all those things, and my next directions tell me to bring this to a boil and let it simmer until the potatoes are tender. After that, I get to put in my kale and heavy cream and stir it until well combined. All right, let's bring this to a boil and reduce it to a simmer. Okay, so we worked it up to a boil and then we reduced its temperature down to a simmer, and that means now that it's not an aggressive rolling boil. Rather, it's just those gentle movements right here. Do you see how it's just gently doing a little bit of movement here? This is our simmer temperature that we're trying to reach for that time where our potato cooks. And then we can go ahead and multitask and prepare our kale. So kale is pretty cool because it grows really easily in our gardens and locally. And it's a pretty hardy one. So once I wash it in that cold water and I rub it with my hand, then I can go ahead and work with it in my dish. And if I buy kale, like let's say I do my shopping for the week and I buy a green spinach and then this green kale, this kale will be hardier and last longer in my fridge than that spinach. So I can go ahead and use up my spinach at the beginning of the week and then come to my kale later in the week and use that up, okay? So then the way I'm gonna work this is, I've washed it and I shook it off, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and take it, and it's kind of got this taco-iness to it, right? So I'm gonna fold it in half and lay it on my cutting board. And I'm just gonna use my knife now to cut this woody, hard stalk out, all right? So get in here and see what I'm up to. See this stalk here? That's not gonna cook down soft. We don't want that in our recipe. So I'm just gonna take my serrated slicer and I'm just gonna follow along the stalk and get rid of it. I'll just throw that away. It's never gonna cook down soft. So now I have this nice green part of my product here. I see a little bit of goodness and light on there. So get that cleaner. Get it all with my hand. So we're gonna go ahead and take our product, and this direction tells us to just cut it in rough chop in like 3x1 strips, because you just want some on a little bit on every spoonful, right? So I just go ahead and I stack it up. It doesn't have to be a super precise process. That's why the word is rough chop. And you're going to use your serrated slicer and just go ahead and pass over in those like 1x3 strips. Our directions tell us we need 4 cups of this. So I have a big actual liquid measuring cup sitting here for me to pick it all up and put it into in order for me to measure it properly. So 4 cups is a quart. So in my big liquid measuring cup here, I want to make sure I get a whole quart of it, and I'm going to push it down real good. So if I push this down, I'm a little less than a quart. So I'm going to go ahead and use my second piece of kale here. Again, I fold it in half, kind of move the leaves to the side, get rid of that barky stem that's never going to cook down soft, and get rid of that, okay? And then just go ahead and stack it up, cut it in layers. Don't feel bad about just using that whole half, having a little more green in your soup. Everybody wins. Now here we go. This kale, 1, it lasted nice in our fridge. It's nice and hardy. It grows awesome and beautifully. But 2, raw like this, it's an amazing fiber, right? It's going to act like just do amazing things for us nutritionally. But once I put this in my soup and wilt it down just a little bit, now I'm going to unlock this anti-nutrient in this kale, and it becomes a big multivitamin. So not only is it full of awesome fiber, but it's full of folate, it's full of calcium, it's full of iron, and then that onion that I put in my soup is got more vitamin C in it than an orange. Our protein choice that we got a protein in there. With our potato, we have a complex carbohydrate so that our body has to take its time to break down and use that energy, keeping us full longer. So this is a really nutritious bowl of soup that's going to bring us a lot of satisfaction in our cooking, satiation. And we are at an aggressive boil. Better babysit that, turn that temperature down. Now we're gonna just wanna make sure that we check our potatoes and make sure they're done. So you can take something like a paring knife or a fork. Those might be options for you, and poke your potato. As soon as it's soft, it's done. You move on to step 4, okay? So you go ahead and you're just gonna take a fork or something like that and see if you can poke one of your potatoes. See, mine are nice and soft now. I poke right through them really easily and gently. If you want to use like a paring knife and it pokes through really gently, then you know it's done. So with that, we don't want this rolling boil. We actually want the simmer. So we're trying to reduce the temperature on this electric cooktop. It's giving us this challenge. Now, how come I didn't add the heavy cream in the step of simmer? That's because dairy does not like to be at high temperatures for extended periods of time. It breaks down, it separates from its fats and its milk solids. So that's why in this step, we go ahead and we wait till the end to add our pint, our 2 cups in a pint of heavy cream. All right, so we're gonna add our heavy cream at this place. We're allowed to add our kale here, turning it into this multivitamin in this dish. And then you'll see here, you're going to see some color transitions happening. You're going to see how you have like the more matte color here as it starts to cook. And then as it wilts down in just minutes, you guys, about 3 minutes maybe, it's going to start to get this bright, vivid color. Look, it's even beginning now. See how it's changing in color? This is that wilting process, literally unlocking part of those anti-nutrients and allowing us access to the awesome goodness of this kale. All right, ways to use kale in soup. All right, so we're gonna just stir it until well combined, just like the directions told us, right? And then it lets us finally add that sausage back in. So while that is wilting just for a moment or two, we can set our dirty cutting board aside and make sure that gets washed, rinsed, and sanitized. But we can head back to our spicy ground turkey or our spicy sausage, and we would find that all the greases hopefully have drained off for you, depending on how you did your setup. So for me, I'm just going to remove this paper towel, or actually I'm just going to move my product, I think, down to the side and just dump it straight into my pot because it's time and it's ready. Look at the beautiful color on this kale, how it's wilted down just a little bit and turned into just a gorgeous, vivid green. We add our sausage. That's our last ingredient to put back. It's been drained off nicely of its fats. And you guys, I never did need that 2nd tablespoon of butter, did I? So you could even, in your documentation of your recipe, if you want to reduce that 4 tablespoons of butter down to 2, go ahead. All right, this is a complete product. We got nice tender potatoes, awesome spicy sausage, the flavors enhancement from the garlic and the onion. We took some time to develop that fond and return that awesome flavor to our dish. So we can go ahead and grab our ladle, that kitchen equipment to ladle out our soups, right? And we go ahead and we ladle that into our bowl, making sure we get everything in there. And then you can garnish it with some fresh grated Parmesan, maybe some red pepper flakes, right? Fresh red pepper if you really want to kick up the heat. Maybe more pepper if you want, so a little fresh parm. Maybe some red pepper flakes. And you have a nutrition-packed meal that's going to keep you full. It's going to provide a lot for you. So team, enjoy this. Enjoy your time in the kitchen. Make sure you're asking yourself good questions. And have a great day.